Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
We are coming from a new location today. Oh, my God.
Restart?
No.
Okay.
Leave it in. We'll do it live. That's one thing we're going to have to fight with the current setup is we can't turn our heads.
Oh, yeah.
You got to keep talking forward.
Kind of prefer it.
Got to keep moving forward. All right. Well, as I said, we're coming from a new location. Podcast on the road. Coming from the new homestead of Mr. D over here. How long you been in here?
I've been in here a month.
Has it already been a month?
It's been a month.
Holy.
Jesus.
Chattison strikes again.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we want to let everybody know the town? I guess it doesn't really matter because the only people that listen to this actually know us.
Yeah. That's cool.
But I'm JT.
D.
And this is episode 5 of our podcast that doesn't have a name and is still being called To Be Determined.
It pretty much doesn't exist.
I don't think it's. I think it's going to continue to never have a name. Like that's our bid at this point.
That's cool. It's basically just us bullshitting.
It is. I got some positive feedback from one of my coworkers that I showed it to.
But did they make eye contact with you when they were saying it?
I mean, it was probably the same as like if you invite a coworker to listen to your jam band.
Yeah.
Your jazz fusion funk with no vocals, just you and like 5 dudes that they don't know up there experimenting.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, I think if this one goes well, we should send it out to a wider test audience.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Also, burp.
There's an alarm going off. Are the police here? Is that your perimeter warning?
Okay, so
we actually prepared. Well, not really prepared, but we talked about what we wanted to talk about beforehand. So it's a step in the right direction. We're improving bit by bit. Trying. It's progress.
Yeah, let's go ahead and we want to start off with the Cowboys. Since we have a game here in an hour, 2 hours.
2 hours.
And the situation's a little bit different.
It is.
Yeah, so last week we got destroyed. It was embarrassing.
We got pooed on.
And, it sticks out a little bit because of the major issue with the game and the team currently is Tyron being out. And the shit show turnstile that Chaz Green performed last week.
I mean, he was no better than a fucking Subway turnstile. You said it. He just let him go on through and counted the sacks as they went by.
I mean, you could drive through our parking garage and the speed bumps would slow people down faster or more than him. But anyway, so Jason Garrett got shit on, and in my opinion, fairly.
Rightfully so.
For his lack of any kind of adjustment to help him.
And you always hear, like, whenever the Cowboys lose, like, you'll hear people bitch about not adjusting in halftime or not adjusting or making changes. But this is the most clear example I've ever seen of a failure to adjust.
And, going through Reddit and listening to the radio and just talking overall, there are a lot of people coming to his defense and overall with the team. And, I understand that you have a week to game plan. And you can't just drop what you're doing. A lot of people saying you can't just, throw a tight end over there and expect everything to get fixed. You've got this game plan, you got to commit to it. And I just do not agree with that argument whatsoever.
What's the Mike Tyson? Was it Mike Tyson that said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth?
Yeah.
Well, the Cowboys got punched in the mouth, and that plan went out the window.
I mean, I guess I get the argument to a degree.
Yeah.
You don't want to always just immediately abandon your game plan, and it may not be easy to make an adjustment, or it may not. It's not something you always want to do. My problem is, how do you make the argument that putting a tight end over there, or having Alfred Morris block a little bit more, as opposed to the 5-4 wide receiver sets they were going out there. Like, there's nothing working with that setup.
Yeah.
Your quarterback can't even make his first read, second read, before he's getting hit in the back.
I'd say most of the time it's not even the first read.
Yeah, I mean, he's running for his life. There's no success there. So what do you have to lose by changing your game plan?
Well, and it's exactly what happens. What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
It's exactly what happens when you fail to adjust to what's happening. Like, you can't. I'm full of quotes today, but doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. But that's exactly what happened. Like, if it's not working, you can't keep trying it and expect it to working. So I get the defense of not abandoning the game plan, and like you have an idea of what you need to do. You have a way that you've prepared your team, but if you don't adjust, you lose in that situation, and they didn't. And the ticket brought it up, and they showed a couple or talked about it, but I think it was 4 or 5 sets. They had 3 tight ends, and every time was an Alfred Morris run that went off for an average of 6 yards.
And that brings up another thing that I've had a problem. It's been brought up before. We understand that the Cowboys were down early and pretty much the entire game. But are you going to tell me that why do you completely abandon the run?
Yeah.
I mean, that you're not protecting your quarterback. You're not absolutely out of time at that point. I mean, we were down from the get-go, but the entire second half, it just feels like, again, they abandoned the run just like they did in with the Packers in the playoffs. It doesn't make sense to me.
It seems like Jason Garrett is afraid to not pass. Like, I don't know if it's he likes passing more than running, but he doesn't want to just commit to the run.
Right.
Especially when that's the only thing you have working. And maybe it's because he has it in his head that he's missing his best running back, so the run isn't going to work. But we saw that Alfred Morris and this line, at least the right half of it, or the right 4/5 of it, knows exactly how to run. And if you put somebody who can carry a ball and not let it go, you'll have success.
I mean, even when Zeke's in there, we see him abandon it. And I mean, it's frustrating.
Absolutely.
Another thing that really bothers me about the argument against changing your game plan is we saw really early in the game that Anthony Brown was getting isolated by Julio Jones, and Julio Jones would have had 400 yards if you see Rod Marinelli make adjustments to double up Julio Jones, and maybe that was the game plan from the beginning. But you can't tell me that the offense can't make these adjustments when your defensive coordinator, who in my opinion is the better of the coordinators, one of the better people on our staff, is making those adjustments in the same game.
Yeah. I mean, you can see it's pretty clear. Adjustment works. Not adjusting doesn't work. And I am somewhere between a casual and casual plus Cowboys fan. I watch the games. I enjoy it. I know a little bit about football, but I'm not an X's and O's guy. I'm not a Madden guy, but I could clearly see that exactly what was wrong. And that's why I brought up to you, do you think NFL teams should employ like a common sense armchair quarterback?
Yeah.
Like just a fan who understands the game and maybe played a little football back in the day and could just like, from an outside, not part of the team perspective, look at it and be like, hey, you guys are doing that wrong.
Kind of like a bullshit devil's advocate. Like
it's like a civilian consultant.
Yeah, I mean it's like you've had those days where you buy this shirt and you think it looks really cool till you go meet your friends and one of them tells you it's just terrible, and then you appreciate it, but you wish you'd have had that all along.
You need some outside the box feedback in certain situations, and I mean I'm not trying to trivialize everything that goes into running a $1 billion football franchise, but 99% of Cowboys fans could see exactly what was going wrong, and nobody did a damn thing to fix it. And all it takes is a set where you have a tight end over there. Like, if you're getting blasted on that side, don't run plays where you don't have additional protection over there. That's it. Like, you can't do it.
Right. I mean, definitely no empty backfield. It's just...
Especially when the rest of your season hinges on Dak. And
Absolutely.
You're getting him blown up. He got sacked 8 times, but how many times did he get knocked back? How many times?
You see, even on these bullshit sacks, I don't think they were necessary. There was one in play in particular. I don't think there was any intention of hurting him, but you've got Chaz Green pushing the defensive end down into Dak's knees. Like,
yeah,
I don't agree with taking out your quarterback. I don't think that's. I'm not a coach, but I can see why you wouldn't take him out. You want your player, in sync. It's a long season.
Yeah,
but you can't do both. You can't leave them in and then just not make any kind of adjustment to protect them. But
if no adjustment happens, like what happened, and Dak had gotten hurt in that garbage time whenever he was still in the game, does Jason Garrett lose his job? You lose your franchise quarterback?
I doubt it.
Or do they fire the offensive coordinator? Because we all know that Jason Garrett doesn't actually call plays.
They probably fire Linehan. I don't know. It's hard. You can't really look at the Cowboys like a normal franchise because the situation with the head coach, and that's why Jason Garrett still has a job, in my opinion, is that he is such a yes man, such everything that Jerry wants in quarterback after having the shit show, in his own opinion, of Parcells.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Jerry's hand fits just so nicely up Jason Garrett's rectal cavity.
Which is also another thing that, in my opinion, made all of this so much worse was, and he's been like this since day one almost, but, it goes up there in the press conference and just says, we play for 60 minutes. We play for 60 minutes. And just has this dickbag attitude about it. So smug. I'm sorry. I know he doesn't have to give press conferences. It's a fuck you to the fans.
I took that a little bit differently. I took that in he didn't have anything to say, so he found something that he could stand on, and he just ran with it. Much like how he didn't adjust in the game, he would not adjust his press conference. Like, he found that one play, and that's all he ran. Doesn't matter who got hurt. It doesn't matter who it pissed off. He was just trying to get through those 60 minutes.
Yep.
Get through the 60 minutes. But yeah, no, that is a dickbag move. I don't know. Every now and then I have faith in Jason Garrett, and then games like that happen, and you're like, you're not a good football coach.
I mean, if he's preached as this smart man coach, Princeton, blah, 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 but how early in his career, how many times did he fuck up the timeouts and managing the clock?
So much so that he doesn't have a role on the team other than figurehead.
Yeah. I mean,
he lost defensive play calling. He lost offensive play calling. His only job now, and maybe that's a testament to his brain power, his only job now is managing clock.
Yep.
Like, he does challenges, and he calls timeout, and he may tell run or pass, or I want to blitz or block.
It's a joke.
It is a joke. And every year there are 32 fan bases that think their team is going to, 31, the Cleveland Browns never think it, but think that their team's going to go and win a Super Bowl. But, this year I had a good feeling. I mean, we had the Dak the Ezekiel suspension hanging over it, which I want to touch on after this. But outside of that, we had a good-looking team. We had a solid offensive line. We have a good running back. We have 2 good running backs in Alfred Morris. Good wide receiver core. Our defense was solid. I didn't know that we were going to have who's the guy that's been tearing it up on defense?
DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence.
Beast. David Irving's been great.
Yeah, our suddenly, we kind of hit in the draft or in free agency in the offseason. We actually got a defensive line that can actually pressure the quarterback.
And it's weird because, that's been something we've worried about for the longest time. And it's funny because we drafted Taco, and he's, for the most part this year, he's been kind of a passenger. So, we basically in my opinion, we got better with the defensive line that we had with no real changes.
Yeah.
David Irving, we didn't expect him to. He was a pleasant surprise, and DeMarcus was great. It just
So we're having success in places that we weren't expecting to, and the problems that we're having are stemming from. I mean, coaching is the only thing that you can say.
So there's one thing that has been mentioned a lot, and that's especially on the defensive side, and that's Sean Lee. He's an awesome,
Glass knee Sean Lee.
Amazing player, but he's hurt half the year, and then you look and our defense is garbage without him.
I've never seen a more perfect example of like a player with all the heart in the world and the skill and the determination with just a glass skeleton.
A body that can't hold up to it.
Really cannot hold up. Because, I mean, he's our defensive captain, right?
Yeah.
Defensive captain. He is making tackles. He's been the Cowboys defense when he's in for the past, 5 years?
Yeah.
And he just, I mean, he'll take a tap. He'll take a tap and he's done.
Which, to be fair, that's why teams passed up on him in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
I love the dude. He's awesome. I think we're coming to the point where questions are being asked. Are we going to ride on hoping he doesn't get hurt every year and then just try to make adjustments afterwards? Or, I don't know. You can't just get rid of a player or move on just because he gets hurt when he does that much for your team. But
yeah,
it's definitely something that's being asked moving forward.
I mean, it's like building a house on a shaky foundation. You know, it'll work when it works, but you're really playing the lottery on whether or not that house is going to come falling down. It's kind of like to switch it over to hockey. It's kind of like the teams that pick up Yager. Like, he's a solid player, but at some point he's going to have to miss a couple of games because he's so old. It's the same thing with Sean Lee. Like, you can't depend on a player like that because he's going to miss some games because of energy. Not energy. Wow. Injury.
Yeah.
Thank you. This Dallas blonde is hitting hard.
It doesn't help that our linebacker situation is curious to begin with.
Who was the player we drafted that had drop foot? Was that Lawrence?
Jalen Smith.
Jalen Smith.
And it's tough.
Yeah.
I initially didn't have the concerns that a lot of people did, but he does get exposed quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, and they were saying whenever we drafted him, this dude may never walk properly again, much less play elite level football. Yeah. So it's pretty amazing that he's made it back at least to this far, but he does seem like a bit of a liability. Isn't it that they tape his ankle from moving?
I have no idea how it works. But
I think that's why he's getting exposed a little bit, is because his ankle does not flex.
Yeah, put him on Gronk.
Would you?
Absolutely. With the meat bun.
But the whole time she says her name is Vergara. I am Sofia Vergara.
Sorry, we're watching commercials.
I threw the name in there so people would have context for the question I was asking.
Right.
Speaking of misogyny, I want to jump into the national story surrounding the Cowboys this season is the suspension of Ezekiel Elliott. And off the top, hindsight being 2020, do you think the Cowboys should have made him just take the suspension at the beginning of the season?
I think so, and I understand their reasoning against. I guess I understand. I may not agree with it. At this point, though, it's been such a distraction.
Yeah,
and I'm not in the locker room, but I can't imagine how, as a teammate, even if he's your friend, you've got to deal with this week after week after week, and you're a football team that's trying to keep up in your division.
Yeah.
I don't know why you want to prolong that, especially when we're hitting one of the harder parts of our season.
Now, without our best running back. Arguably the best running back in the league. I don't know. So I get Zeke's understanding or position where he doesn't want to be labeled as what happens whenever you serve a suspension like that. And we're not really touching on whether or not he did it or not. Excuse me. Because, that's up to higher powers to decide whether or not he is actually guilty of that. And the Columbus Police Department decided that there wasn't sufficient evidence to prosecute him, which is a whole nother bag of worms. But, I understand why he did not want to serve the suspension, and I understand why the Cowboys didn't want him to serve the suspension at all. And I think the real push and the real reason why that decision wasn't made is because the NFL Players Association did not want him to serve that. And it's not because of an individual basis, but because of the overarching power and precedent that it sets for players, that the league can suspend them without a legal case against them being brought to charges. I mean, and you'll have to correct me, criminal justice major over here, but he was accused, but formal charges were never brought. Correct. Okay. So, in this case, it's a he said, she said sort of thing. The police got involved, and nothing legally happened, and it was all court of public opinion. And the NFL has had its egg on its face so much that the league wanted to set a precedent and say, we're cracking down. Our players are no longer going to abuse women, which is a good stance. It is a good stance. But more important than, trying to make a PR move because of how bad you fucked up the Ray Rice situation is to get it right. And I think in this case, they're overreaching.
I'd agree with you. Again, not whether or not he did it. And
I mean, if he did it, he should serve the suspension. If he did it, he should have been brought up on charges. We're in no way condoning women or violence against women or domestic abuse in any form.
Correct. There are a lot of circumstances around this one where you're just kind of wondering why they're taking such a hard stance on this one. Especially he hadn't touched the field yet. You have players that were drafted this year that have a history of beating women, and yes, some of them have been penalized for it. You got Mixon in Cincinnati now, but it's just it's inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a field goal kicker that admitted to beating his wife,
and there's
no missed games.
Documented evidence that dude is a fucking psychopath. Did you see that? His journals got entered into public record, and you could read them. Dude was crazy. You always hear about kickers being the crazy people on the team. Dude was legitimately crazy. If we're talking about the same person, I can't remember the name, but
I can't remember either. He's a kicker.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it's Nick Folk.
Said a kicker, not a. Anyway,
but yeah, I understand why it became such a big deal, and one of the things that I really like is this is really highlighting the role that Jerry Jones plays in the NFL, and it's turning into a pissing match between Jerry Jones and Roger Goodell, where they're both flexing.
I mean, it's to the point where the other owners are fed up with it,
mm-hmm.
and
I love the fact this is even being brought up, but the discussion of the nuclear option where they could actually strip the Cowboys from the Jones family.
Yeah, it'll never happen. It's just funny that it's come to that point.
Yeah.
In the last decade, you've seen two, if not the most influential owners in the NFL with Robert Kraft and Jerry Jones. Both are just not on good terms with them right now. I'm sure him and Kraft are fine now.
Yeah.
But, you go after Tom Brady for the shit show Deflategate.
Yeah.
And then now you're going after, probably the biggest name on our team right now with the Cowboys. And
yeah.
it just, you go after him a year after all of this transpired. He played a full season.
I mean, this is like billionaire playground, death match.
And I understand why the Players Association is so involved with it too, because again, now you have this almost legal standing of the commissioner can do whatever he want, and there are no repercussions as far as the suspension. As far as
I'd get it if it was any other type of suspension, any other type of like conduct unbecoming to the office sort of thing. But when you're talking about the hot button issue of 2017, which is kind of women's rights and harassment and abuse and those sorts of things, even though he's never been formally charged, if he serves the full length of the suspension without it being overturned or anything like that, then he's going to be labeled in the court of public opinion as a woman beater. And does Ray Rice have a job?
I don't know.
I think because Jerry Jones is standing behind him so much that he's not going to let him go until it's convenient, until his play starts dropping. But Ezekiel Elliott, I think, should fight it. And the one thing that we can never have is an outsider's perspective, because we're Cowboys fans.
Right.
We're always going to be a little bit biased towards what's better for the team. That being said, he's going to come out. Helmet came off. Is that Crabtree?
That's Crabtree.
Michael Crabtree. But yeah, this is a tough situation, and it has been a distraction. It kind of reminds me of the contract holdout for Emmitt Smith. What was that, 95? Or was that 93? But Emmitt Smith was holding out, missed 2 games due to a contract negotiation, and the Cowboys lost both of them. Negotiation. The Cowboys lost both of them, and it was the same sort of thing. It was like a circus. Like they didn't know who was going to be the starting running back. And I'm not comparing Emmitt Smith to Ezekiel Elliott, but they're both the running backs of the Cowboys, and they're both kind of linchpins. And Emmitt Smith was much more important to those Cowboys than Ezekiel Elliott is to these Cowboys. But the circus, the distraction, they lost both of those games. But whatever year that was, it was either, I think it was 93, but it might have been 95. We're 0-1 with the Ezekiel-less Cowboys.
Yeah, I can't say that we win that game with Zeke. I think Zeke would have. Yeah, we might have called more runs. Maybe we'd had more success with that.
Yeah.
It just, whether for the better or the worse, I don't think Zeke's to blame for that.
No, it's definitely not Ezekiel's fault. But yeah. I think Jason Garrett's processor is only about a dual core, and we really need a quad core. We need him to be able to multitask a little bit. So he only had one problem he could focus on, is that he doesn't have a running back. I think if he isn't focusing on not having a running back, maybe he makes the adjustment that's necessary that gives us a chance to win that game.
And, we talked about Sean Lee and moving forward with that uncertainty. You look at Tyron. Tyron's missed multiple games for the last couple seasons with the back issues. I think we're looking at a situation again where we may want to consider going with another offensive lineman in the draft, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it sucks having to draft to your strength.
Yeah.
Think we win tonight? No way. Eagles are the best team in the league, right?
Their record indicates it. They're good. I doubt we made any adjustments. We might have. I do want to. I know we're wrapping this up, but I just would like to mention how much Troy Aikman was shitting on Chaz Green.
That was definitely a shining light in the darkness.
Like a lot of people, again, we're biased. So we may be incorrect here, but a lot of people on Reddit, when you're watching these games, make these comments about how biased Troy is in favor of the Cowboys. And are we watching the same game? Like, my father for years has refused to watch any Cowboys games where Troy's commentating because he thinks that he just shits on the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And it just, to hear him, I think at one point he said, "This is the worst I've ever seen." Like, what was it? Worst performance by a lineman I've ever seen.
No, it was this is the worst I've ever seen a player get beat in all my years of watching or playing football.
Oh,
that man's been around football since 1985 at a high level. 30 years. He's like, you are the worst person. You truly suck at this game.
And then, he doesn't pull any punches on his old backup. Why are there no adjustments? So
yeah. I do like it. Sometimes it pisses me off because he has no Homer bone in his body. But, I mean, he goes out of his way to maintain that. And actually, that's a discussion that's been brought up about Tony being a broadcaster, that he needs to make sure that it's in his best interest to maintain a Cowboy-esque bias, like to not have a bias, to not lean one way or another whenever he is calling Cowboys games. But one thing that somebody pointed out is, like, he does have a very unique situation in that he just came out of that locker room, so he understands how that team works better than any broadcaster has ever understood how a team works.
Absolutely.
And so there's a lot of insight that he could bring that I hope he gets to call more, and I hope that he brings out a little more.
I mean, it's a shame not a shame, but he's commentating this game right now, and we've got it muted. But he was making some pretty cool comments about Tom Brady. I mean, you've got a former quarterback, as far as last year, that is commentating on a game with one of the best of all time that he just recently played with. So.
That's in his position, so he understands how it runs.
Shit, he's younger than him.
So do you think CBS was upset that he went to Mexico? For spring break? Or what was it, the bye week?
The bye week.
Was it bye week or no? It was we had a bye.
Yeah, it was right
in postseason bye week, not season bye week.
Yeah, which Jason Witten went too. He didn't get shit on.
Tony Romo's my hero. He is my leader.
Agreed. Homosexual.
Homosexual. That's right. All right, we're gonna take a quick break and pause Cowboy talk, and we will come back with a little bit of nerding out. We're gonna nerd out for the second beer of this 3-beer podcast.
Yeah.
All right. And we're live. We're back. So one last touch on football before we move on, but New England is shitting on Oakland.
Yeah, it's entertaining, I guess.
It is just because, I don't know, I find blowouts can be entertaining if I don't have a dog in the hunt. Like, if my team's getting blown out, I don't like it. If my team's blowing people out, I don't necessarily like it. Like, everybody likes scoring, but those games are boring. But whenever you're watching from a neutral stance, seeing somebody get shit on, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. So, go
ahead. I was gonna segue. Segue away, Meryl. So we're gonna nerd out for the middle part of this, but we wanted to talk about a little bit of movie and video game and entertainment shenanigans. But this past weekend, Justice League released.
Right, and I think they're regretting ever making that movie.
Man, who's the studio that's in charge of the DC Cinematic Universe?
I don't think, I'm speaking on my ass, I don't think they have a specific one. Warner Bros. Did this one.
Did they? Okay. Yeah, I guess Batman is generally done by Warner Bros. But yeah, no, I can't say that it's been a great start for the Justice League franchise. So my initial thought, and the first thing that I thought whenever I got out of the movie, and what kept hitting me while I was watching the movie, is that this would be an okay movie if the Avengers didn't already exist. Because it's so formulaic, cut and copy from the Avengers.
Without the most important aspect of it. So, sorry, starting a little bit. So, one of the reasons, in my opinion, and I think there's be some agreement, but one of the reasons why Avengers was so successful is because of the build-up. And the build-up was a series of movies for each character that were good on their own.
Yeah.
Most importantly.
Like, almost all of them were good on their own.
Yeah, I mean, you could... There's an argument about how shitty Captain America, the first one, was. But it was absolutely necessary.
Yeah, you gotta have a origin story for Captain. I think Iron Man 1 is probably one of the best of the lead ups for that one.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I love Iron Man 1. Was it Iron Man 3 that got pooped on a lot? Thor was great.
Thor was okay. It kind of varies depending on how into the stories you are. You might not be so into all of them. I mean, Iron Man overall, I think is the easier one to get, and it's the cooler one.
Yeah.
Not everybody's into a period piece with Captain America.
Yeah.
And then Thor's just got some weird stuff. But
I guess the one thing that you can say is that they were all subjectively successful movies.
Right. And then they also knew which movies didn't need to be standalone. I mean, you didn't see any more Hulk movies.
Yep.
You see Black Widow peppered through all the other movies. So,
Hawkeye didn't need one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't. They did a great job, and especially with like one of the most important like plot teasers for the next movie that Avengers did very well. Excuse me, the Marvel Cinematic Universe did very well is at the end of the credits.
The post-credits.
Yeah, the post-credit scenes really tied everything together in a fantastic way that still isn't done yet. Because the next Avengers is the Infinity Stones one, right?
Infinity War, yes.
Infinity War, so it's gonna have all those stones that are in all the different storylines and all that. But I mean, there's an overarching theme that makes it like an episodic, like almost television series, but cinematic movies. That's tying everything together and making a great plot.
Well, and they have this whole phase system where you have these standalone movies coming up, but the idea has always been, at least on paper, to get us to Thanos, and so it's moved towards there, and it's ultimately gonna wind up there. Sorry,
yeah,
but it doesn't really seem like DC has that. They kind of do with Darkseid, but it just I feel like they did everything wrong on this.
Yeah, it seems like somebody was like, it goes all the way back to the comic book, the fanboy Marvel versus DC, and Marvel is having all these successes and $1 billion franchise after $1 billion franchise, just printing money, and people are like, well, we have the rights for the DC comics. Why are we not making those?
Well, and here's the thing, like, Batman was pretty much the only relevant superhero in the movies back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And they had that success, and they never just...
Superman.
Really, yeah. So, I mean, both of them.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in the 90s, it was all Batman.
Yeah, agreed. And, very successful movies. I mean, probably if you adjust for inflation, $1 billion franchises.
And in my opinion, the best comic book movie period is The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
So that was a well done feature, but they probably made the right decision with making it a standalone outside project and having no relevance with DC. It ended up being better for the story, but you've got DC that's just trying to play catch up, and they're going about it in all the wrong ways.
Yeah.
You saw them finally make some kind of headway with the Wonder Woman movie, which was, I thought it was good.
I very much enjoyed that movie, and I was ready to hate it because we've been beaten over the head so much with, and please take this with a grain of salt. I'm not saying anything about the movement or anything, but it just, in pop culture, it's in this year to be about women's rights. And so whenever Wonder Woman came out, I was ready to not like it because I'm just ready to get hit over the head with the overarching theme that, men are bad. But they did a great job with that movie. Great job with that movie. And I think it's an important one.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong. It had its flaws.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we shine a good light on it just because of how shitty the DC movies have been. But they made progress, in my opinion.
They did.
I thought Suicide Squad, I really wanted to like it. And it had some cool aspects of it. Overall, I thought it was a bad movie.
It absolutely was a bad movie.
It was pretty bad. And I'm not a fan of Batman vs. Superman. And I don't know. I think that's why it's just not going well. I can't say... I love Ben Affleck in the movies he's done recently. The Town...
the fucking sound.
He's done. He's excellent for movies. I can't get around him being Batman.
Yeah, I don't think it was the right choice. And to touch on that briefly, I was speaking to a family member that their understanding of Batman is more like Michael Keaton's Batman,
right?
And that George Clooney didn't make sense as Batman,
right?
And Christian Bale didn't make sense as Batman. But it's kind of like the Batman that you grow up with that becomes Batman for you is Batman, and anybody else is an imposter. So it depends on who you're talking about in an age bracket, because anybody outside of Adam West is not Batman to baby boomers, sort of thing. But I do agree with that. I do think that Ben Affleck is not a good Batman, and it's because we've seen so many different roles with him that don't fit Batman. That being said, like, they had to reboot it, and I don't know who else could be a good Batman, but this is one thing I wanted to touch on as you were talking about The Dark Knight, and the reason why, because they're moving towards this, and they did take some steps to bring out Justice League and to develop this cinematic universe, but the Dark Knight Batman is the best, like, Batman series that will ever exist. Like, you can't top it. Like, it's so good. So good. And people probably disagree with that because everybody says it's so good. But they had to reboot Batman because the Christian Bale Batman could not exist in a world that Superman exists.
Right, and I don't think it should.
Exactly. Because even as fantastical as the Dark Knight trilogy was, there were no gods in that. And,
right.
Superman's a god, essentially. But, there's an element of fantasy whenever you get into... And I'm speaking purely from somebody who consumes it from the movies. Like, I never read the comic book, so I'm not, like, true into the lore. But, you can't have a Christian Bale Batman and Superman in the same universe. So I did understand, even though they did a terrible job with it, why they had to reboot and do Batman versus Superman. That being said, so let's run through, like, the DC movies that led up to this. So you had the Man of Steel, right? That was the initial reboot. And then was it Batman v Superman was the next one that was in this universe?
Suicide Squad was.
I thought Suicide Squad was after.
It might have been.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and that's it.
So
Wonder Woman.
Man of Steel was pretty bad, right? I don't remember anybody saying it was great.
To be good. It just wasn't. I'm sorry. I feel like that's an issue with DC overall. Is Superman is super strong. Yeah. It's boring.
Yeah. And that's kind of something. Yeah, agreed.
I mean, if you look at Marvel, you've got all these super strong characters. Some of them stronger than others, such as the Hulk, but they all have this issue. Like,
they have a flaw.
Yeah.
Like, you can't have a good character without a flaw. And Superman's only flaw is a radioactive space rock,
which they've already used.
They use every time it comes up because you can't have a movie without conflict.
Right.
And so kryptonite is in every movie unless it's not centered completely around Superman, which is kind of why it made sense what they did with this one.
Right. And I'll be honest, I think Henry Cavill is an excellent Superman.
He's great.
He's perfect.
He plays Clark Kent Superman perfect.
Right. It's tough. Lex Luthor was an interesting cast. Gal Gadot
is great.
She's perfect. She was a little skinny, but I think she's done an excellent job.
Yeah.
And then, I don't have any problems with any of the other characters.
Yeah.
Just Batman. He's so big. Like,
he's Fat Man.
They make him look so swole. I guess that's cool. It just, when I think of Batman, I think of, like you said, you identify with the one you kind of grew up with. Christian Bale, and pretty much, in the comics, he's a ninja.
Yeah, ninjas are not bodybuilders.
And even like the fighting in Batman versus Superman, he's throwing people through walls. And it just,
And I love the really like at the end of Batman versus Superman, whenever he puts on like the additional armor so he can fight Superman.
Right.
The dude can, lift a skyscraper. Like, it doesn't matter what you put on your body. Like, a human cannot survive a fight with Superman.
And that's...
Doesn't matter how rich you are.
That's my biggest issue is I feel like they should have just gone the route that they kind of set up for themselves. I mean, you see Marvel kind of did this with Logan, where you have these standalone narratives.
So good.
But you had this perfect story with Batman versus Superman in the comic books, and there was a anime movie over it. Just make it real, make it standalone, and
trying to tie it in, trying to build that Avengers, and so that's my whole takeaway from everything that's led up to this is they're trying to cash in on the whole cinematic universe blueprint that Marvel has built, and it's just not going to work, and you're sacrificing art. Really, I mean, all the stories, all the capital built up with the comic books, and you're ruining it. I mean, not financially, they're all going to be successful movies. Like, they're all going to make a fucking $1 billion.
It's right now. I think they're saying it has to make $700 million
to break even
profit.
Yeah,
and the sad thing is, a lot of these movies make a lot of money over in China,
overseas,
but you're looking at the numbers and it's barely keeping up with Iron Man 1.
Yeah. That's the kind of like backhand compliment that like keeps the industry going, but like people lose jobs because of. It's like, yeah, the movie made money because we got bailed out by the Asia Pacific Rim region, whatever. But you fucked it up because you didn't make any money in America. And
you always think that competition brings a better product.
Yeah.
But you see Marvel just striding. I just feel like DC's not making any headway, and I'm partial to it because I grew up a DC kid.
Yeah,
way over. But you have the Green Lantern was a shit show, and that sucks because he was my favorite hero growing up. And you're probably not going to see a Green Lantern movie. I know that they want to do that probably in the future if things worked out, but.
They did. Ryan Reynolds was Green Lantern, right?
Yes.
In that movie. I wonder if they're gonna try and do like a crossover where Deadpool becomes the Green Lantern or something crazy like that.
Well, in the Deadpool movie, there's they make jokes about it. Like, you're not gonna put me in green CGI, are you?
I love that fourth wall bullshit. But yeah, I mean, overall, it was a movie. I enjoyed it. But I couldn't, if I could enjoy it in a vacuum, I would have enjoyed it much more. But I couldn't get it out of my head that this is just a money grab.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I say go see it. If you're not a big fan of the comic book movies and stuff, probably wait for it to come to cable or.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, I enjoyed the movie. I think you made that. You made that comment.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the series. I'm a fan of the characters. You're disappointed by what could have been, which is a okay segment into Destiny.
Yep. Yes, it is. So now we're going from one nerd subject to the next nerd subject.
So talking about disappointment, in relevant in that they had a previous product, Destiny and the Dark Knight, that was very good, and then they're taking a step back with the next iteration.
I think it's even more poignant with the Batman reference because you had success but not quite right in the early Batman and the original release of Destiny 1, and they got it right when you get to the Dark Knight, i.e. the Taken King and everything that they did with that. Like it started out kind of a rough game that we stuck with, much to your chagrin at some points.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a rough game. The launch had some issues. Every game does.
Yeah.
We hadn't seen, and maybe I'm wrong here, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. We hadn't seen a game type like this of this magnitude launch on. You have Call of Duty, but those are little small multiplayer games, really quick. I mean, we played a couple today. They were like 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
And then you have Destiny, where they launched this whole new world, these whole new servers, And it had some issues, understandably. I mean, we had an alpha, we had a beta, and they, you're still going to have issues.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. Anyway. So we are at about about like 3 weeks of Destiny 2 on PC. About 2 months from launch.
Yep.
And we're approaching the first DLC for the
first
game
DLC
on December the 4th. And this week, Bungie, we'll start off by the announcement in which they provided some comments that got some people. There were some concerns. The main of which was the term raid content.
They, instead of in previous DLCs, whenever they said they were launching a new raid, they would say new raid. That's it. 2 words. And here they had new raid content. And I want to expand a little bit. I love Destiny. I thought it was a fantastic game. Once they finished, it was great. I love everything about it. I probably have an addiction to it, which is not. I don't think that's against what they were trying to do with the game. I think they were literally trying to develop a game that would get people addicted to it. So, good on them. And I want to say that I think that it is. I mean, it created its own genre, is the way that I see it. Because every game that comes out that's trying to be it is labeled a Destiny killer. So, I mean, it's love it or hate it. It's a big thing. Wanted to say that. My opinion of the game, I'm very biased. I like the game.
If anything else, right now it has the market share. Like, you still have Call of Duty that's always going to do well. I say always. I mean, they've had their issues too that we're not going to talk about. You have all these big AAA titles, but I feel like Destiny has a really consistent following now that it's on PC, maybe even bigger. But the general view
with the new raid content,
echo chamber, because the people that are on the Destiny subreddit are all people that probably play way too much like we do.
Yep.
You had this game by the end of Destiny 1. I thought they had a pretty solid product. If nothing else, they had done a great job of making some adjustments to
building on a foundation
that we wanted. We'll bitch about how long it took them to give us vault space. Understandably, now we'll bitch about it. But eventually they did make some changes, and the Taken King was great. You had a good game. And then Destiny 2 drops, and all of that progress was gone.
They threw it all away. Literally, they blew it up.
Everything is gone. I say everything. I can't really think of any of the good things that they added to the game that really made it back. They changed the way that your gear works. They changed
the way that the gear works. They changed a lot about, I mean, the core mechanics of the game stayed relatively the same. Like, they changed the weapon types, which was I still don't like, but it still shoots the same. Like, all the weapon types still perform the same, right?
Yeah.
So the core mechanics of the game are there. The lore of the game still exists, but all of the creature comforts and all of the activities that you do within this platform, they blew it up and rebuilt it. And they took 3 steps forward with the Taken King. They took 3 steps forward by the time they finished it up, and then they took like 6 steps back.
Yeah, I mean, some things
with Destiny 2
foundational that made the game fun, they just
dropped
for balance purposes with PvP. Like, I can't tell you how much fun it was. Like, we bitch about it, but running around blinking with a shotgun.
Yep.
Doing shotgun strikes, using a sniper.
Yeah.
All this stuff, and now you shoot your primary assault rifle, and then you flip to your energy weapon, which is assault rifle
or a scout rifle or a select few hand cannons.
Those guns aren't fun to me, in my opinion. Some are, but it just, I feel like that's where the biggest variety of the gameplay was. There are only 3 classes with 3 different abilities.
Yep.
And those stay pretty much the same. But John can be sniping while I'm running around trying to shotgun the captain.
Yep.
And that's gone.
Yeah. And the way that they changed it is they took those away from being almost you always have ammo for it, and so you can use it regularly, and then you have an additional, even more powerful ammo or powerful weapon. They took that and put it into the same class as a rocket launcher or a grenade launcher. So by making that switch, which was purely for the sake of PvP, I mean, I'm willing to view an argument that, it's making made the game a little too easy whenever you had weapon or access to the weapons, and by switching it to power weapon, you can still play with them. But effectively, they took those guns out of the game, and the philosophy and the tagline behind Destiny 1 was "Become Legend," which implies that it's supposed to be something epic. It's supposed to be something where you feel powerful. And the moves that they made that make you feel less powerful, it's cutting off your nose to spite your face type thing.
Right.
And you played WoW back in the day, so correct me if I'm wrong, but Blizzard used to have issues where they would adjust and buff and nerf the game in line with PvP and PvE at the same time, right?
Absolutely.
And, the player base bitched and bitched and bitched because they had a way that they liked playing in PvE that would get shut down because they were trying to make it work in PvP. And it wasn't until, they decided, okay, we're going to adjust these games completely separately whenever it comes to weapon meta, that, those two really could be in balance, right? Whenever you start adjusting them as they are, which are two different games completely, can you really, get in that? And so I agree with you. I hate the fact that they mess with snipers and shotguns like that.
I guess one thing
and
that really
rifles
ticks me off about it too is, they make these changes that take some fun out of the game for me.
Yeah.
But then, in an effort to help PvP, but then they don't have dedicated servers.
Yeah, and then they didn't
tick rate.
Yeah, I would take that change if they actually improved upon PvP, but they fucked it up even more. Yeah. They went from 6v6 or 3v3 or 1v1 or free for all. You had a bunch of different modes. They went from that to changing everything to 4v4
with a longer time to kill, which is how long, if I'm shooting you constantly with an assault rifle, how long it takes for you to die.
Yeah.
And
longer time to kill, so it's a slower game pace, and there's less people, so it's a slower game pace. And you can't choose what game mode you're playing in.
Right.
And to top it all off, and this is really important to you, and it's important to me too, that they don't have dedicated servers, and they have a dogshit tick rate, which a tick rate is related to internet connection stuff. But basically, you have a shitty connection, so you have a shitty time whenever you have a dogshit tick rate and you don't have dedicated servers.
Essentially, you're running from a guy while he's shooting you. You go around a corner, make it away, and you die because the tick rate's not registering that you're around the corner at that point.
Or you both kill each other, which happens so much.
A lot.
And that happened a lot in Halo, right?
A little bit, yeah.
I remember trading a lot in Halo.
I've never seen anything quite as bad as in Destiny, but
yeah,
I mean that's.
And I will say one of our biggest complaints is that that Bungie's trying to make it a esport game. Now I do want to clear that up because we've both been saying that that's not factually accurate.
Right.
No one from Bungie has ever said that they want to make it an esport game, and maybe some of the changes that they made would make us believe that they're trying to make it an esport game, but to be an armchair quarterback and take a step back, they are a professional video game studio. They probably understand that you can't have without dedicated servers and without a better tick rate, it's never going to be a successful one.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that higher ups and non-technical people, and maybe Activision, who's kind of our dark side in the story, don't want to make it an esport because they want to cash in on that money.
And that's not, I get it. That's not the root of my complaint. My complaint is that you are making changes to the PvE game
which was
an
fucking
effort
fantastic
for PvP, and then you don't make the actual improvements to PvP we want.
Well, and what's funny too is we went back whenever we did our drunk raid night. which is available on YouTube. You should go watch it. Whenever we did our drunk raid night, after we finished all of the raids, which is an abject success in my book, we went and played PvP, and I had so much fun.
I mean, if we didn't have anything going on this weekend, I was going to ask you guys if y'all wanted to go do it. We actually talked about it.
Yeah.
Going back and doing Vault of Glass. I still enjoy it.
It's still great. We still enjoy going back and playing Destiny 1 content that's missing from Destiny 2. And, you know, it's really sad that it may not come back.
The problem is that we're going to have to pay for it to come back.
Probably. And it's...
You know,
so,
they talk about how much time they... Essentially, one of their arguments is, you know, about a year into Destiny, we started working on Destiny 2. Well, how's that going to change for this one? Like,
yeah. They need to fix their development cycle, because I'm glad you brought that point up. That the live team took over and started working on Destiny 1, so a lot of the improvements that we saw in Destiny 1, a lot of the things that we liked, the Taken King, happened from a separate team than the ones that were already developing Destiny 2.
That was still running Destiny 1 at that time.
Yeah.
When Destiny 2 was in production.
So if there is one thing that I could tell Bungie, one bit of armchair quarterback advice, one bit of civilian consultant advice, talk to your live team whenever you're developing Destiny 3.
Which, and we haven't mentioned, but one of their big arguments is by the time they had to start developing Destiny 2, these changes hadn't been made, or they essentially their development team was in a vacuum. They had no involvement with the live team. They had no involvement with the changes that the live team was making. They didn't have time to put them in. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess it does. I'm not an industry professional, but
you know, it would be fantastic if we ever do actually get to a point where we start having guests on a podcast. I would love to talk to somebody who actually knows how, who has worked for a AAA studio developing a game.
Yeah.
Because I'm, as a lifelong gamer at this point, and someone who's probably never going to quit playing video games, I would love to know what goes into actually developing these things. But
and we have no idea. But as a consumer, I'm frustrated because we're buying a game and we didn't have anything to compare it to.
For the second time,
yeah,
we're buying a game.
We're going to have to go through, hopefully we're not going to have to go through all these changes again, as far as waiting a year before we have more vault space.
Yeah.
But that all comes to the present now, where we have a new release of a DLC.
Yeah.
And we did get the news this week that there's no actual new raid.
Yeah.
Which
Circle back around.
We were all speculating about.
Yeah.
With the exception of Vault of Glass, it's the first real DLC that has, or not, sorry, Vault of Glass, House of Wolves, which had Prison of Elders. We haven't had really a new expansion that didn't have a raid. Excuse me. Again, we have Prison of Elders. But with all the speculation aside, the news came that we have these raid layers, which are additions to the previously released Raid the Leviathan, adding new bosses and new encounters.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhat, it's a modulated raid.
Yep.
Which, when all said and done, I guess I'm happy with that. If we get new encounters in some form or fashion, great. I'm a little disappointed, me being a little into the lore of Osiris, that we have this pretty cool character that we spent years learning about a little bit, and then we don't have a raid involving him. Maybe we do. Maybe he's part of the Vex and the Leviathan. But
the Leviathan is a completely different raid than what this, or a completely different race and class. Alien. You've got 4 base races that you fight, and so each one of them has like dedicated raids. Is kind of how Destiny works,
and essentially dedicated
expansions. Yeah, DLCs. And so this was a Cabal one, and this next expansion is going to be a Vex one, which are the robots. And so I don't understand how they're going to tie an expansion with a different race into expansions on the Leviathan, other than it's just going to be...
So the one thing worth noting in that is that the Leviathan, lore-wise, and we're really reaching nerd potential here, the Leviathan is consuming Nessus, and
the
Vex are on Nessus.
And that's where Osiris was chilling, right? Was on Nexus.
He was on Mercury.
Okay.
Well, actually, we don't know where he was. I don't.
I guess we'll find out.
He went to Mercury. Asher's on Nessus.
Right.
But it's possible that you have the Vex trying to integrate into the Leviathan or attacking the Leviathan, because Nessus is another one of the worlds in the solar system that they were turning into their machine.
I did not know that. I didn't think about that. My previous statement was factually inaccurate. That could be kind of cool. Especially seeing that when you look at the scale of that thing, which is big enough to eat a planet, the fact that, in an hour and a half we were able to run through all the important parts.
Yeah.
There's definitely more to it. So, okay, that I could see could get interesting.
But we're speculating at this point.
Yeah, we really are. And I am glad knowing that now it's not like you're going to have a new raid on a new planet. It's completely new. That they didn't say new raid. Because if they said new raid and this is what we got, there would be riots.
And
nerd rage.
I'm semi-positive about it. At least we got some new content. There's some people that are still just absolutely pissed off.
Yeah.
Maybe rightfully so, just because, again, all the issues with Destiny 2, I say issues, some of the disappointment that we've had with the game to date. And the fact that we've been waiting for a DLC to drop to add some content, and it's
this
not
is what
as
we
much
get.
But you're never going to please everybody. I understand the position they made. It's actually kind of a smart idea, I think.
From a business standpoint.
We've got these assets. Why don't we just add stuff to the assets? I see the disappointment. We've got this new event with this new hero and these new enemies that warrant their own expansion, but they're not worth a raid. But then they're also bringing in what's called the Infinite Forest, which is not procedurally generated, but supposedly, I don't know. I see it as just,
please let it be a horde mode.
I don't know.
Please let it be a horde mode.
I doubt it. It seems like it's just going to be some kind of glorified patrol.
Yeah. With a name like Infinite Forest, if it's not a horde mode, they wasted it.
It's tough. You're coming from the developer that made Firefight, which was essentially horde mode in a sense, and I liked it. John liked it. We played it.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't the most popular thing that they did, but I think we want any kind of new content. The strikes in the new game are hit and miss. The Pyramidion is awesome.
The fact that there's 4, there were 10. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the biggest problem with everything that they did, they abandoned all of the old content with the expansion that they did. With Destiny 2, they abandoned everything they did with Destiny 1 except for the way your character looks. That's the only thing that carried over. That's not like lore or...
His voice didn't even carry over. He doesn't talk anymore.
He doesn't talk. It's fucked.
She doesn't talk.
He, she. It.
Yeah, so... I think we could entertain ourselves if we had the Destiny 1 content in there, and we could do strikes. And but now we have 4 strikes. You can't even choose to do the strikes particularly. You have to go through the playlist and wait till you get the one you want.
You can't choose the mode in PvP either.
You can't choose. You can't even go back and play missions that you'd like to play again.
I don't know why we're whispering.
I don't know.
It's because these are things that have been said over and over again in that salt field. What is it? Rahul's Salt Emporium, the Destiny subreddit. And the reason why people get so passionate and the reason why people are fired up and why we're nerd raging is because we do. I'm going to say it for me. I love this game. And I love this franchise.
I mean, the heroine of this game, in my opinion, is how fluid the actual gameplay is a little bit.
It feels so good to shoot.
I respect to bring it up. I respect the Borderlands series. It's very similar in some ways as Destiny. Shooter, stats, doing damage, but it just doesn't feel as good in my opinion. It doesn't feel as good in me. And the story's not quite as captivating to me as Destiny is. The gameplay is awesome, even more so now it's on the computer. So
it looks so good in 60 frames. So good. When
you hurt that by taking elements that people did like, and there's not enough to get you out to actually shoot your gun, it causes. We have a lot of time invested in this game at this point. These games. So
fun stat that first year that Destiny was out, I played more Destiny than I worked at my professional job.
Hurts to miss that one.
Yeah, I should have been a streamer.
Yeah.
But one final thought on Destiny. I feel like this DLC is make or break. I know that the studio may not think it this way, but this DLC, and I guess some ways the next DLC, because you kind of have to buy them together. I think you have to buy the season pass, right?
Yeah.
So if they fuck this up, and if they don't fix the game and fix at least some of the things that we've bitched about, which the live team have already said that, like, hey, we see these problems, we're going to start, like, working on stuff.
We do need to mention, the live team is now involved. They're back.
They said they took over.
They're in charge.
Yeah.
So
he can't get his jersey off.
There's a player trying to take his shoulder pads and jersey off, and he looked like a turtle stuck on his back.
He failed.
I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
If they don't succeed in making the changes that we want, I feel like they're going to have a lot of people that are not going to pre-order Destiny 3. I feel like they're going to lose a lot of the clout, a lot of the market share in developing its own type of game. Like, they're going to lose a lot. Like, this is make or break.
So I don't know if it's quite make or break. We're in a situation where most people, as you mentioned, most serious gamers, serious vested people in this game are financially invested in the game through the spring, because again, most of us had to buy the DLC in the package. Most people, I think, John, you did. I did this on one of the avenues. You pre-ordered the season pass, so you get this DLC and you get the one in the spring. So after that, they've got our money, but
that's what I'm saying.
That's where, and unfortunately, that might not be the best situation for us, because they've got the money. They're not going to see the hits that they're taking for people not buying the DLCs because they already quit the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if it's make or break, but I think after next spring, if there's not a lot of progress and there's not a lot of people, then you're going to lose a good chunk of your core.
Yep.
And Anthem's coming out. That whole EA situation is a shit show, and it's not better right now.
Is Anthem EA?
It is EA.
Okay.
It's BioWare. It's probably the last BioWare game ever.
Gotcha.
They're the next to go. But yeah. So as far as Bungie as a studio, it's not pay to win. That's kind of nice. It's pretty much all
cosmetic.
I had some dickhead on Reddit say, "Well, you get mods through the Bright Ingrams." If you're a fucking idiot that's buying Bright Ingrams for mods, I'm sorry.
You're wasting your fucking money. Like, a fool and his money are easily separated is what comes to mind if that's the way that you're playing it. But yeah.
Yeah, I will give them credit for that. I don't really have a problem with the test situation. There is purchasable items through microtransactions. The one thing I will say is that they are the loot box model. Just that I have a problem with overall, but this is the least of all evils in that it is just cosmetic.
And that's something that, like, the EA and the overall the shareholders and the money behind these games and behind our passion, like, it only exists because they make money, and there's a reason why AAA studios have to do shit like that, and it's because you can make infinitely more profitable games that are cell phone based games that run off of microtransaction models.
Right.
So we may actually be. I was so okay with what Bungie did with the silver and what they did in Destiny 1 and what they did in Destiny 2, even though it is loot box model, which, you know, we'll touch on, but it's something that has to happen for the thing that we love to survive. Like,
I don't know if it has to happen.
things only get made because they make money, right?
Right.
And so, it has to happen because people want to make money.
I just don't like the business model of loot box. I think it's gambling.
It is gambling, and
it encourages it to kids.
What is it? Sweden? Who's looking into it? Belgium? There's some European country that is looking into the loot boxes and the way that EA is handling Battlefront as gambling. Like, they're investigating it, and they're like, hey, you guys may not legally be able to do that in this country because we don't allow gambling. But yeah.
I think that of all the companies, I think probably Blizzard has the one that I like the most with Overwatch. The items are cosmetic only, but you get them every level. You get a loot box, and then you get currency through the loot boxes and through deleting some of the shit that you already have that you can use to buy the sets that you actually do want.
So you can actually buy the gear that you get in the loot boxes.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is an issue that I have. I mean,
I agree with that.
I would buy an exotic ship, or I would buy the dance if I knew I could just buy it, but I can't. I have to buy 10 bright Ingrams.
Did you buy
for a chance?
Did you buy silver in Destiny 1?
I didn't. I think we all got
we all got a little bit of some.
Free.
Yeah.
I never bought it, and I don't think I ever will.
I spent money on it because I wanted the Carlton dance.
Oh, shit! I might have dropped $10 because I wanted that ghost.
Cover. Oh yeah, ghost. But yeah, so that's an example. Like, we don't like microtransactions. We understand the necessary evil sort of thing behind it. At least I do. But in those situations, we're like, there's a thing that we actually want. We want that thing, and it's kind of like the Chuck E. Cheese model, where you buy tokens to play the games, to win tickets, to buy shit that cost a lot less than the tokens that you spent to buy it anyway.
Right.
Like, that's the whole loot box model. It's fucking Chuck E. Cheese. It's Dave & Buster's. It's fucking carnivals, which are a form of gambling. But what they've done now in Destiny, I think, is wrong. And they do give you an option to buy some stuff, but like the number of items that you can actually just like pay money and buy are much, much less. Which, actually, no, I take that back. You can't do that.
You can't buy them at all.
You buy loot boxes, you break the shit down that you get in the loot box, and then you can use that currency, which is different than the currency that you get to buy the loot box.
Right.
You can use that to buy a select few things that rotate every week.
Correct.
Yeah. Which I found a ship that I like on each of my characters, and I found a sparrow that I like on each of my characters, and every single other thing that I get out of those loot boxes gets deleted.
Yeah, I mean, we're just holding out for the emotes.
I want that fucking backpack dance thing that you have. What is this?
I think it's the string dance.
Yeah, string dance? I don't know. It's fucking... I want it. I want it.
Awesome.
It's so awesome.
Yeah. But
let's dive into that EA thing a little bit harder, because I think that's something that crosses from nerd culture into real world culture, even though it is video games. But I love this because this is an attitude that I kind of defended a second ago. But basically, the idea of throwing money at the screen, the idea of microtransactions, and the two different types of microtransactions that exist in gaming. You have cosmetic, which is what Destiny is for the most part. I don't think there's anything that's pay to win, although there were arguments in Destiny 1 for a couple of things. But and then you have pay to win, which means that you can put money, you can use real world dollars to buy things in the game that make the game easier, take less time, give you an advantage over other players that didn't do it. Those sort of things.
Buy a gun instead of having to unlock it.
Which is something that Call of Duty does, right?
I'm not sure. I haven't paid that much attention to it yet.
I think Call of Duty, you can actually... There's certain guns that you can only get through their microtransaction system, be it through loot boxes, which you do actually earn playing the game, or paying real-world dollars to buy either loot boxes or to buy that gun. So,
which we refer to in the gaming consumer group as there's a paywall to content.
Yep. So... a lot of people don't have a problem with some aspects of pay to win as long as you can still earn that thing without having to pay money for it. So as long as the paywall doesn't exist to pay to win, and it just gives you in a sense, like you can invest your money instead of your time to get that thing.
And that's where EA decided to. I say EA. I'm gonna just single them out instead of
No. This is the most blatant example in AAA gaming.
But this is where you take that example of a mindset where, you know, I don't mind it that much because I can still get it just by playing the game. And EA is like, you know what? Let's just make that harder. And it'll take hours and weeks to get that content.
The calculations that, you know, the Reddit mathematicians did, which, you know, be it as it will, I don't know if it's right or not, but, you know, the internet thinks it does, so in a sense it actually is real, is that for you to unlock every possible additional thing in Battlefront 2 is the game that we're talking about. It's the Star Wars game that is strictly multiplayer, right? There's no campaign to it. It's just like a free-for-all. There's a campaign now.
Maybe. I don't know. I didn't play it, so I stayed away from it by all means, so I don't remember.
Yeah. But so in order to unlock everything, which in this case, it's a Star Wars game, and I think everybody understands that Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and all these characters are, you know, they're crucial to, if you want to enjoy a Star Wars experience, like you need to have those things. They're locked behind an unlockable. Which you can earn by playing the game, or you can, you know, use dollars to buy currency and then you can unlock them that way. And so there is actually like an advantage to having certain heroes. So it is kind of pay to win, and it's also locked behind a paywall in the sense that it would take 4,500 hours. 4,500 hours to unlock everything in this game. Or $2,000 is the math that they came up with. $2,000 or 4,000 hours. Now, for a little bit of a reference, I no-life the fuck out of the first year of Destiny. Like, I played all the time. Like I said, I played more hours of that game in that year than I did in my professional career. And I still played only about 1,500 hours.
Yeah.
So if all you did was play this game for a year, you may hit 4,000 hours, or you can spend $2,000 to unlock everything. So they've, in effect, you know, they've said, okay, well, if you guys are okay with being able to earn the things that you want by playing the game, well, you can still do that. But if you want to save a little bit of time, you can give us money. And both of those numbers are absolutely ridiculous for something that's supposed to be fun.
To add on to that, can you specifically buy a Darth Vader, or do you have to buy loot boxes to get currency to get?
I think you can specifically unlock them, but
okay,
I'm not sure if it's a 100% loot box model.
I mean, it's definitely a loot box model.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in order to unlock heroes, I think you can specifically purchase them if you buy the in-game currency. You can choose what you want to spend it on, or you can, you know, gamble to try and get it. I mean, I think
I would like to verify. I wouldn't be surprised if that's not the case, and it's just completely loot box where you have no control over whatsoever.
Yeah, but
because it's EA and they're already money grabbing as it is.
I mean, so bad. And one of the best memes to come out of this, and the reason why it really got attention and why something's actually happening about it is the EA community manager, who is the person responsible talking on social media, who's the person responsible for communicating to the community, the people that play the game. This person put a comment up, and I'm going to take a half a second to bring it up because it's just fucking fantastic.
The initial question was about the loot box model and why it would take so long to actually get these characters that people want. And I don't remember the specifics of the question. John will ask it here in a second, or read it here in a second.
Yeah.
But it ended up being the most downvoted comment, I think. I don't know if it's in Reddit history. I don't know if that's true anymore because they made the terrible decision afterwards. This is what started. I don't know if I'd say it started, but this is what really made the traction go with the whole fiasco. But then they did an AMA a couple days later. and I know for a fact they had some comments get downvoted more. Also, I learned why it got gilded so much. So in Reddit, you have it's called Reddit Gold, but it's essentially you are giving this person Reddit Gold, which is a paid.
It's a microtransaction for Reddit.
Yeah, but I didn't know why it got 86 Reddit Golds, and I was curious why. It's because they gave it Reddit Gold to keep it from passing the threshold where it got hidden. Threshold.
Yeah.
From downvoted so much.
Yeah, so by people paying money to make sure that it stayed at the top of the comment thread so people could downvote it. So it was, and I think Reddit Gold is what? It's $3, $5?
It might be. I've never.
So Reddit got $400, not including ad revenue for that.
It takes a special kind of hate to pay money to do that. Like,
I'm gonna pay money so you take it up the backside. That's like giving a bum $5 to punch somebody in the face.
86 heroes.
All right, so let's see. The original post was, I spent $80 on Star Wars Battlefront 2 only to find Vader locked behind a paywall that would either take either real money or dozens of hours of gameplay to access. And the EA community team responded with, the intent is to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes. As far as cost, we selected initial values based upon data from the open beta and other adjustments made to the milestone rewards before launch. Among other things, we are looking at average per player credit earn rates on daily basis, and we'll be making constant adjustments to ensure players have challenges that are compelling, rewarding, and of course attainable via gameplay. Blah 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 blah, some other bullshit. You can go find it, whatever. But the one is, the intent is to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes. That is what just pissed everybody off. And I don't know, it's just like people who are so out of touch with a community that are in charge of being the mouthpiece for a game for that community. This is a perfect storm of like people being pissed off on the direction of video games, the direction that the industry has been going, and just frustration with this person and the way that they responded just boiled over to something that was just beautiful. And it took, after that, people started canceling their subscriptions, their pre-orders for the game. In a significant enough amount that
they removed the feature from being able to cancel and refund
online
on their website. You had to call them because those happened so quickly.
And then people were getting stuck in wait times of 2 to 3 hours because there were so many people trying to call and cancel their pre-orders.
Yeah, so let's go over the chain events here. So shortly after that, was it the same day?
Yeah, same day.
They announced that they were reducing the cost of
no that happened after.
What?
I think that happened after. So you had the comment, the downvote to fucking hell, and then didn't that?
No, so they made the announcement that they were reducing the cost of the purchase by 75%. Purchase, I say time invested, 75%. They also announced they would be doing an AMA on Wednesday.
Yep.
As part of that announcement. What took Reddit, and I'm giving all the credit to Reddit. I don't think it's just Reddit. The community, it took them a whole second and a half to also figure out they were reducing all rewards you were getting by 75% too.
So they reduced the amount of time, or excuse me, the amount of money it would take to buy it, but they also reduced the amount of currency that you could earn in game by an equivalent amount. So in a sense, they made
doing the math nothing.
Yeah, so the amount of time it would take to unlock it stays the same, but the amount of money that would be required, they reduced it a little bit. But I don't know if they reduced the amount of money. But they also, another change that they made with all this blowing up is they no longer allow you to buy the in-game currency with real-world dollars. They took that feature away.
Well, yeah, so they do the AMA. The AMA, they get shit on completely again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Rightfully so, because they didn't answer really any questions very well.
Yep.
They defended why they don't do loot boxes for just cosmetic. They acknowledge that they don't do pretty much anything cosmetic, but they want to. And so shortly after, that's when they make the announcement that they were removing all paid content for the time being at a later time is what they said.
Yep.
So we're jaded. So you want to think that as soon as, Christmas hits or shortly after, once they have everybody's money and they have people playing the game, they throw it right back in, and we've made no progress. But there is some positivity that maybe the community is at least making the developers, and I don't say the developers.
Think about it.
I feel bad about one thing about, and we've talked about this, Battlefront. That game looks amazing.
It plays great.
DICE does an excellent job with their graphics.
Yep.
But
so we don't blame the people who made the game. We blame the executives who are charged with making money off of the product.
Right. And
doing so in a way that is detrimental to the consumer base, which is, a business exists to get every possible dollar they can for their product.
Right.
So I don't blame them for that, but I do blame them for taking it too far.
I agree. We understand that times change, businesses change, industries change, but we're looking at a trend that I think a general majority of the serious gamers don't like.
Yeah.
And then you have now the situation where you have kids that are getting used to purchasing items.
Yep.
And honestly, the kids purchasing items is not reflective on a majority of the community. Or it might be. Maybe we're just the loud minority. But
yeah. I do want to say that I do not fault developers for trying to make money off the products. I think for a long time that part of the reason why the DLC model, which is not something that existed 15 years ago, and microtransactions, which are not really something that existed back then, the reason why these things are developed is because the cost of making these games has skyrocketed. Right. It costs hundreds of millions of dollars to develop a AAA title.
So, and video games are just like writing books or making music. You have developers, which are it's your book writer. They write the content, they make it, they produce it, but they all have a publisher, which is your Penguin Press, who actually has the infrastructure to actually put the books in your hands, or in this case, a video game.
IP versus actually producing.
Right. And that's where the demands are made, is the publisher side.
Yeah.
That's where your developer has to make the choice if he puts loot boxes in the game or if he feeds his kids.
Well, yeah, and that's the point that I'm getting at, is that the cost to produce these games has skyrocketed.
Absolutely.
But the dollar amount to purchase them has not changed in 30, 40 years. Correct. It's been $60 for as long as I can remember for a Nintendo game, a Super Nintendo game, an N64 game. Every single console, $60 is a sweet spot for what people will pay for a base game.
Except for, Steel Battalion.
Yeah, but you were paying for that controller, right? That controller was what made it. The sweet controller, the command console. But so the consumer price we pay has not changed in 30 years, but the cost to develop them has skyrocketed. And I think that's why I don't really have a problem with DLC. I don't have a problem with paid expansions, as long as the content that is provided is something in addition. It's something worthwhile. But that being said, I would have gladly paid $100 just up front. And that's why normally I don't have a problem with the DLC buying thing. But
for games you like.
For games I like. But microtransactions piss me off because it's a way to just nitpick and get on people's addictions. And that's when eventually video games are just going to turn into slot machines, is what microtransactions are really doing to video games.
That's how it is on the mobile.
It's the fucking cell phone.
the
mobile gaming is the just bane of gamers' existence.
Agreed.
Fuck mobile gaming.
They should be, just like with PvP and PvE, they should be separate markets, separate business models, separate ideas, but they're starting to make the changes because of how well it does in mobile, which is fucking bullshit. Just play Scrabble.
Just play Scrabble. I'm going to go ahead and say if a mobile app is making enough money that it can afford advertisement on the Super Bowl
with Arnold Schwarzenegger,
that motherfucker is profitable, and profitable in a way that you haven't seen since the mob running Las Vegas.
Agreed.
And it's bad. It's bad for our passion. Fuck mobile gaming.
Anyway, we love Destiny.
We love Destiny. We want you to do better, Bungie. Do better. Be better. Okay. So we're sitting at that hour and a half mark.
Yeah.
I had a question. I had a philosophical thing that I wanted to ask you, but it doesn't really align with what I want. I think what we have here is a good podcast that we can probably just go ahead and call
wait till
it.
next time.
We can wait till next time, or we can do a bonus. A little short bonus that maybe we'll tack into the next one, or we'll do.
Okay.
But at least for episode 5, I'm going to go ahead and say this has probably been a good place to stop.
Cool.
So, coming at you live from Addison for the very first time, I want to say thank you for listening. I'm JT.
D.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Or good day, or whatever.